Welcome back to another construct video, and in this video we're looking at unfinished projects part 3. This is the third part of where I show you some of the projects that I've been working on and just never quite finished it, whether they were for game jams or they were video concepts that never quite made it to YouTube. Let's have a look at them now, and they'll be all available to download in the description below. So, starting off with project 1, this is a car game, and the aim of it is to collect all 3 stars and get to the end square. Now, this was meant for Tri-Jam. This is a sort of weekly jam that happens. You get 3 hours to make a game, and this was my sort of entry for it, but I never got past the first concept stage. So, let's talk about the good things first. First of all, you can draw a road, and you've actually got a limit of your road. So you can see that I've only got 21 bits of road left to place down. If I try to get to the end, it'll restart. If I let go of the road early before it gets to the red square, it'll also not work. The moment that I get it to go to the end and it works correctly, then the car will move. Now the problem is, if you draw the road too quickly, which I did at the very start, you can see the car's going to teleport quickly. Just like that. Now I do believe I know what the problem is for this one. So what I've done is just change one little bit of code, and now you can see that as I'm drawing it adds in these yellow points, and if I'm quite slow my mouse, it adds a lot more of these. Now one thing that I actually spotted in my code and I fixed, so this will be available for your download, is it does actually add one of these points when you start, and this was causing me problems. But again, you can see if I draw a line really quick, then I only end up with 2 points at the end. So it's definitely work to be done with this. It was very sort of choppy, didn't work the way I intended it to, which is why I sort of abandoned it. It also took me quite a long time to get to this stage. I was a little bit annoyed that it wasn't quite working the way I wanted to do. But again, it's a really nice, simple concept of following a line, and I think it's something that needs exploring a bit more. So I'll definitely come back to it at some point, maybe not as this sort of example here. The other thing I just wanted to draw your attention to is actually using a plugin. This is called the Spline plugin. I'll leave the link in the description, and it will also be bundled with this example here if you download it. And Spline works a little similar to Pathfinding, but does stuff better than Pathfinding, and doesn't do stuff that Pathfinding does that's really useful that Pathfinding does. So let's say we have a maze. Pathfinding will find the fastest way to get through the maze and get to the end. Spline will not do that. It will not find its way through walls. What Spline will let you do instead is it will let you set key points in the maze, and it will go to each point one at a time. You can even make it so it loops back to the first one. So if you're making a game, maybe like a stealth game, and you wanted your enemies to follow a set path around it in a circle, or follow set paths around the room, Spline behavior is amazing, and it does that really well. Moving on to project number 2 then, we have my version of the watermelon game. A really popular game going around at the moment. I was going to make a tutorial on it, but I realised I was just making it because it was popular. I wasn't actually enjoying making it as a tutorial, so I decided to abandon this one. But this is a physics-based game. I definitely want to do more with physics because I find them really interesting. But if we get 2 cherries come together, they come together to make a strawberry. And if 2 strawberries come together, which I'm not doing a very good job of doing, there we go, they'll make a grape. Now you can see that we ended up with 2 grapes, so it's a little bit buggy still. So there's definitely still issues to work out. And then if we combine 2 strawberries together to get a grape, 2 grapes together, we get an apple. So 2 main reasons why I abandoned this one. One, first of all, I wasn't really enjoying it. I didn't like the way it looked. And again, that's just not being motivated to make a project, making a project for the sake of it. And the second one is it was a little bit clunky in its execution. I wanted it to feel more like the other game where it feels like it pops in the new fruits as opposed to just appearing. And it just wasn't working. What I did like about this project though was how simple I managed to get the code. Now this was not my first attempt at the code. I tried many different attempts to get this code as small as possible. I had lots and lots of issues. Biggest issue is you're trying to get 2 objects with the same name with the same sprite, and you're checking if they're overlapping each other, which is really difficult because then they both trigger at the same time. You only want one of them to trigger. It causes some nightmares when trying to code this. I did also originally try to have all of the objects be under the same sprite, just in a different animation. That was even worse of an idea. So this was the better idea, but still not great. So this is how condensed I managed to get it to. It's a little bit buggy. So again, there's definitely room for improvement. And then in terms of creating the fruit, they're just different size sprites. That's it. They've got the physics behavior on. I've not tweaked anything on the physics behavior yet. And then the background or the blocks surrounding the edge of it is also an immovable version of the physics behavior. So code-wise, really simple. You can expand upon this. You can have a very simple version of this game, But if you want to go more advanced, then you need to fix this issue of having two objects of the same name collide with each other, have a new object pop in. So my plan was the tween behavior, so it grows in size and have the fruit actually growing to the new size. But there's lots of issues to work out with this one, but this is a really short version and short example to play around with. Now, project number 3 is by far my favorite of this whole video. So what we've got is we've got 50 red dots and a green square they're trying to get to. And we're messing around with pathfinding. Now, pathfinding is going to take the shortest route, and if you created the same maze and you did pathfinding, it would find what it thinks the shortest route is. Now, it's not doing hundreds of calculations to try and find the fastest route, so it will have some issues where it might not be the quickest, but it'll be a really good route nonetheless. So let's have a look when we follow path. Remember, there's 50 red dots. So you should start to notice now that they're all splitting up and taking lots and lots of different routes. Now, none of them taking routes that are necessarily slow. They should roughly arrive at the same time. Some of them will arrive slightly quicker, but they are split up when they're moving through the maze. And this is something that I wanted to play around with for a while. If we show you again, we get them to go back maybe to this point this time. I'm actually going to turn on the lines this time. So this was the route they took the first time. If I find route, it's going to change, and this is the new route. And again, they're all taking these lots of different paths to get to the end. So let's talk about how this is working. So first of all, when we do pathfinding, the object will calculate a number of paths, and it assesses which path's the best by a factor called cost. So if it finds a route that's really, really short, it might be only a cost of, say, 5 different points to get to the end. Longer routes might be a cost of 7 or 10 or 15. And because of that, it's less likely to take those routes because they cost more. They take longer to get there. What we're essentially saying is, if you find a route that somebody else has already found, add 1 to the cost. So we're not saying you can't take that route as well, but as more and more objects take that same route, it becomes very, very expensive to go that way, so they're more likely to go a different way. And all that confusing code is done with one action. This was at about 3 versions ago in Construct. I made a quick video about it when I talked about that whole version update, but this was something I always planned to go back to and never did. So let's just talk about 2 of the main properties on this. First of all, cell spread, as far as I understand it, is what is the extra cost of going the same way as somebody else. So this is set to 1. So if we use the example of we've got 2 paths, one that's 5, one that's 7 cost. So first time we take the route 5, it's the fastest. The next node will also take the route of 5 because it's 5 plus 1 because somebody else is going there, it's 6. Next time it's now a cost of 7. So we now get a decision of, well, do we go the same way as everybody else, or do we go the other way? Let's say we go the same way as everybody else. Well, now that cost is, or that path is a cost of 8. So now it's actually worth taking the other route. We've also got this thing of max workers. So I'm actually going to change this to 5, and this is how many people can take the exact same route as the others. Because it was set to 1, they're actually all taking slight variations of the same route. Now we can say we can have a cluster of 5. So if I find route now, you'll see that not as many paths have been generated, because now we only need to split our 50 nodes into 5 different routes. Apart from that, the rest of the code is pretty simple. We're just doing a pathfinding for each enemy like we normally would do pathfinding. We have this block of code here that looks very confusing. It's a little bit confusing, but that's how we're calculating our lines. And then we've just got to check to say if you click and your cursor is not over the wall, then set the green position. And I'm using this floor, and this is just floor division. So when you divide, you take away the decimal point at the end. So you're always rounding down essentially, just to calculate the point being central of the white square at all times. So feel free to try this one out yourself. Again, this was never meant to be a game. This was just me messing about with Construct, and this is as far as I want to take it. But this would be great in zombie shooters, in sort of sim builders where you want your pedestrians to move around in lots and lots of different ways. There's loads of ideas that you could do with this, and it's just really, really fun to watch. Next project was an entry for a game jam. So this was a little puzzle game that I made, and I wasn't happy with it, so I never actually submitted it for the game jam. The idea is that you're 2 snails, and you have to get to the end. Now it starts off where you're getting to the same end, and then it changes so you've got different ends to get to, and every time you move you put down this trail. Now the rule of this trail is you can't actually go over your own trail or another snail's trail. So I'm holding right at the moment, it won't let me go that way, so I have to go around the way. There are some exceptions to the rule, one of them being these stones, so the starting stones and this stone in the level here. These will actually let you go over them, and then when you reach the end for both of them, the level ends. Big problem that I came up to was trying to design levels for this. So this level here, you can see that we can no longer make it to the end because we've blocked the route for the blue snail. So now I have to restart and go around the way. This is great, and this is a great way to introduce the player to this idea that you can't go over the same trail. However, outside of just blocking a single path or a couple of paths, there wasn't much depth to the game that we could do at all. So this is where this game sort of got abandoned because I sort of ran out of ideas. So you see for this one, we know that we have to go around, and if we make a mistake and maybe we go this way around instead, we're going to block off the blue trail, we can't get to the end. But it becomes really easy to quickly work out which way you're supposed to go and which way you can't go. So definitely more mechanics needed to this, maybe a third snail, the ability to swap snails. Add some ideas for the art design, just adding in some little mushrooms and grass would be really, really cute for this. But again, it was the puzzle designing that I struggled with. One thing that I really liked about this though is if you look on the right side, we're actually going to do a crossfade now. So what I mean by crossfade is this right panel is going to go from the opacity of 100, which it currently is, all the way down to 0. At the same time, I've got a second panel that's blue that's currently set to 0 opacity, so it's completely see-through, and it's going to go up to 100. And this just gives a really nice effect of the two changing over. So that's one thing I was really proud of that I came up with. It's a really, really simple bit of code, and it just gives a nice effect. So these little tiny details, again, why the whole game concept was a bit of a fail in my eyes. The little concept that I've picked up from it are really, really useful, and I've been managed to use them in other places. And here's the code for that crossfade. Don't worry, there's so many different tweens. It's just some crossfade and a lot of stuff at the same time. But if we look at the side panel, you'll see the end value set to 0. At the moment, it's set to 100 because we can see it. And then the opposite for the blue. So it starts at 0. We're going to set it to 100, and we set it at 0 at the start of layout. As for the trail itself, we just check if the snail is moving and they're not overlapping a stone or the start block. Spawn a trail and set it to be solid off by default, and then the moment that we're no longer overlapping it, set the solid enabled, and then that's it, done. So that is a way that we create these trails that we're no longer able to go back over. And the final one might look familiar because it's actually an improvement made to my tutorial last month for a tile based sort of top down game where you can buy the tiles with quite a lot of additions. Now, I said at the start of the video that every project will be available in the description. This is the only one that will not be available to everybody. This will be just a Patreon exclusive, just because of the amount of work and time that I've put into this. I hope you appreciate that. So that'll be available on my Patreon if you want to try it. But let's talk about some of the features. First of all, you've noticed that there is a map in the top right. This map can be turned on and off, and every time we buy a tile, it will place a new tile on the map. And you can see that we've got different icons for different things as well. So we can see that we've got trees are actually represented on the map. We've got stones that are represented on the map as well. So that's also a nice little feature. Now, we've also got some biomes in there, and I've only added in 4 biomes. So we've got a snow biome I can walk over and leave footprints, and these will fade away after a short amount of time. We're also seeing the day-night cycle come in now, so now it's become very, very dark. So this is set to be over 100 seconds. It will go down to nighttime. It becomes very, very dark, and we're able to see around us. We get a little light effect come around us as well. And after the nighttime's finished, it will then go back to day. Now, I've set this really low so we can show it off the video, but it is actually set much higher in the example that you would try. We've also got trees. Now, trees can be actually cut down. So we've got a little sword animation. Now, the sword animation and the animation itself is from OpenGamer. I'll leave a link to that as well. This is a really just nice, simple animation. But again, it means that we can chop down these trees, and they will grow back after a certain amount of time. Just like the day-night cycle, this has been made much shorter for my testing sake. What would actually be the case is these trees would take quite a long time to grow back, so you'd be waiting quite a while, sort of incentivizing you to unlock more tiles that have trees on them. And then again, you can pick up those, and those resources were designed to be built for towers. So let's talk about towers while we're here. So on the left-hand side, there are 2 towers, they're both the same. And if I click, first of all, it will not let me place a tile in an area I haven't unlocked, but I can place it in one that I have unlocked. So let's place a tower here. Now this was just a basic tower that would just shoot gold every couple of seconds. It's completely random, and they shoot out in lots of different directions, and you can pick up that gold. And I'm going to quickly turn off the day-night cycle very, very quickly. Okay, I've set the day-night to be about an hour, so we've got about half an hour before it's nighttime, so that'll be fine. So let's put a tower back in, And again, this would just shoot gold, and then we can use that gold to then buy other locations. So again, once you saved up for one of these, it would save you actually having to find gold in the world. So gold does spawn in the world, so we've got some here. It spawns randomly on each of the tiles that you've unlocked. So the more tiles you've unlocked, the more chance you can find gold in the world. And then you can use that gold to buy more places, or eventually you could buy one of these towers, which might require other resources as well to make it less OP. Now, one of the other things that I thought about as well is making it so you can only place one tower per tile. So this again would sort of make the player more likely to buy tiles, because they'll run out of places to place towers on, and towers were an easy way to get resources. So again, you'd have to buy more tiles to make use of that, and certain tiles would only be able to place on certain tiles. So there might be a certain contraption could be placed in the water. So I had lots of ideas for this, but I overall didn't like the direction the game was going in, so I kind of left it. But we have got some extra features I want to talk about really quickly. So first of all, water. So we can walk on the water. It slows us down, adds this nice little trail effect that slowly fades out. And then you might have noticed as well, the sand has got the same sort of thing. And again, as we buy more tiles, you can see that we've got random stuff spawning like cactuses and random bits in the ocean. And if you didn't watch the video on this to begin with, you might not be aware, but sand is spawning in sand, sand is spawning in water, snow and sand do not spawn next to each other. So little decisions like that were really, really good as well, using random generation to make sure that happens. Finally, I just want to show you what a finished map would look like. So showing that in the top right. Unfortunately, I've not quite worked out why this is not working, but if I generate the map in one go, it's going to bind the tiles, then it's not putting the icons on there, so that's why it looks a little bit more empty. But obviously this would include the icons for where there's trees, where there's rocks, where there's cactuses, so that would be an easy reference to try and find these again. Again, this map is absolutely enormous, so you can see me moving to the right where I am struggling to get to the far side. It's going to take me a long time to get there, and obviously by buying tiles and having other stuff in the way, that's going to take much longer. So it's definitely a concept you could take further, and if you download this, please do. But that is it for today. They are my next set of unfinished projects. I'm sure in 6 months' time I will have a part 4 of more things that I've decided to make that I never quite got finished. But let me know, which were your favourites, which are you going to download, and what unfinished projects have you got? Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!